2024 is on course to be the warmest year on record in terms of global average temperatures. That's a pretty sobering statistic if you're gathered at the annual International Climate Change Conference here in Baku in Azerbaijan. Hence the warning on day one of the conference at COP29 that unless urgent action is taken, it's all downhill from here. We are, quote, on a road to ruin. And it's in cities, not just Baku, but worldwide, where the action is needed most. Because just as this ancient city, surrounded by deserts and the Caspian Sea, is reinventing itself with cutting-edge architecture, so cities have to transform themselves in terms of reducing their carbon emissions. As the innovation and transition expert Giorgia Rambelli explained to me outside a forum on net zero cities, without urban overhaul, there can be no sustainable future.
It is essential for all of us not only to try to think about how do we innovate, but also to think outside of the box to ensure that we can share this technology, lower their cost, and make sure that everyone across the world can benefit from an affordable but also sustainable way of living. Let's start by saying that cities are responsible of about 3/4 of the greenhouse gas emissions that we have to tackle, but they are also responsible for 70% of the total and global energy consumption that we see happening. And when we are looking into even smaller scale, just to give you another tangible example, our cities in our community, they are 100 from 43 countries, and the equivalent of their emission reduction according to the targets of net zero or decarbonization that they set for themselves by 2030 is the equivalent of 1.1 million flights return from Buenos Aires to Jordan, Amman. So
big flights, long flights, yes. If we don't tackle net zero cities, we're not going to tackle sustainable development in any real sense.
Absolutely. I would like to say it's not just about tackling the net zero cities challenge, it's about really supporting them into an overarching and holistic transition to net zero, which also entails trying to pursue resilience, trying to make sure that our communities remain inclusive. There is no way that we can have a sustainable city that is just decarbonized. They need to be inclusive, they need to bring citizens on board. And this is why cities, again, are so essential. They are not just provider of services, they are not just elected or leader that should be leading by example with their policies, but they are also really the connection between our citizens and the policies that we want to see for our future to be implemented.
And how important within all that is technology then, and digital technology in achieving some of the goals you've set out there?
Technology is essential. It's one of the levers that, of course, will enable our transformation. It's not just about technology.
Sure.
We need, of course, forward-looking regulation. We need better standards. We need policies that are keeping, again, into account the social and fair, inclusive component. But technology can help us unlock some of the opportunities that we already have. And it's remarkable to see how there is already a lot of technology. Very often, though, the leap, the jump in between the technology being ready to go and the possibility for our cities and local governments to fully reap the benefits of this technology is still very far in the
Why is that then? So there's a gap between the potential and the sort of implementation. Why is that?
I think there are several reasons. From one side, of course, cities mean everything, right? They have a lot of competencies, a lot of sectors, a lot of different type of departments that are supposed to work together, but it's time consuming, and sometimes it's really difficult to really unlock this collaboration.
To work together, yes.
Exactly. That can really help also understand which technologies could be beneficial across the board. And on top of that, there is also very often lack of capacity. From one side, lack of capacity in terms of resources. This is still a very big challenge, but also in terms of understanding what technologies are available out there. And with such a fast growing reality, and think about just artificial intelligence, for example, it's impossible for someone in a city to be able to do everything and to know exactly what's going on all the time with every type of technology, with every type of innovation.
Yeah. So in terms of, so there's a capability as well as a capacity. So point to what are some of the technologies that you think aren't really being fully utilized at the moment? What can cities make more of?
I think everything that relates to data and digital solution is something that definitely has an incredible potential. The challenges that we see across the board, and it doesn't really matter if you look at the global north or global south, to a large extent, there are cities that still do not have access to the information and the data that they need for informed policymaking, evidence-driven policymaking. There are cities that may have access to it, but they might not be able to manage the data, be because they lack the skills, be because they lack an actual individual able
Yes.
to really bring this information together and really digest it in a way that is meaningful for the community. And then, of course, there is the issue also around being able to have access to tools that can help you use and unlock the power of this data. And this is, for example, where forecasting has an incredible potential, not only to help us decarbonize, to help us decarbonize in a holistic manner, taking decisions, seeing what are the cost benefits, and the co-benefits in particular that we can have across sector, but also where should we invest? I can give you a practical example. We are working with a number of our cities to develop a toolbox for urban planning and mobility. What they would like to see is different layers of data that come together so that you can decide, where do I put my cycling lane? Where does it cost less? But most of all, where am I sure that there is a bus stop that passes by so that if someone wants to go to a hospital, they can actually do that.
Again, it's that joined up thinking.
How do I plan my route here? Do I put it where there is most traffic to take away the traffic, or do I check air quality and make sure that whoever is cycling is actually not breathing that in? Cooling, similar issue. How do I make sure that there is enough shade for my cyclists, for my pedestrians, to make sure that they can enjoy that space and really benefit from it? So it's really a lot of information, and the information is there, but the challenge is to be able to bring it together in a meaningful manner and to have access, as I said, to tools that can help us do it.
So you're surfacing it and then you're using it to implement change. And just going back to one point you said, how important is it also, and how much of a challenge is it to ensure that even within progress towards a net zero city, that all citizens in that city benefit from it, that it's truly inclusive, the change, and that the poor aren't left behind?
It's essential, not only because, as I said before, there is no sustainable city, there is no smart city that doesn't think about the whole of its citizens, but most of all because a lot of these different changes require the participation and the acceptance from citizens, but also the capacity from their side to engage in these big changes that we need to make. Let's think about housing, for example, or energy efficiency renovation. Even being able to say, I can invest in my home, I can retrofit it, I need to find ways to make sure that I'm producing my own energy, I need to talk to the rest of the people that live in my same building to make that investment together. It's not easy, and it's very difficult for most people in our society across the board. So it's important that they understand what the benefit is, they feel part of the change that is being made, but also that, of course, they can bring forward also their own ideas on how they want to see that change being happening.
Are you hopeful? Are you seeing progress?
Okay, if you're asking about the pace, that's always a very difficult question, because for me, we're always moving far too slow, unfortunately. Yeah. So the pace is definitely not there, but we're at least making strides in the right direction. And I think we need to continue looking at cities as a beacon of hope from that perspective.
So embrace that technology and don't delay.
Embrace that technology, don't delay, look into most of all the enabling factor that can help you reap the benefit of that technology, because if you don't have the governance around the data that you're using, if you don't have the regulation, if you don't have the standard that allow you not only to apply it, but also to have access to this technology at a lower cost, yes, it would be very difficult. This constant idea that we need to think about not just solutions that are ambitious, but solutions that are affordable and that can be scaled. Because the world is made of amazing pilots at the moment, but the scale that we need for the transition that actually has to happen is something totally different. So lowering the cost of this solution, apply them across the board, ensuring that more cities, small, middle size, and not only the big one across the world can really utilize this technology is essential.